Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me Miss Jenny Goforth-Hickerson, and she has an amazing story, and I'm like, you must come on my podcast and share. Jenny is a personal trainer, and she just recently went through something that she's going to get into the details of this today, but Jenny, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I love your podcast, and I love, that it's helping so many people with whatever journey they're on.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. You have quite an impactful story, and I'm anxious for you to get into this because I feel like, one, there's not a lot of publicity around it, and it's something that could be affecting a large part of the population, women that don't know why they're feeling bad or getting sick.
It's definitely a journey that was so difficult, like the hardest thing physically I've ever been through. And, I share my story not to scare people. And, I share it to let people know that there is hope with whatever they are dealing with within their bodies. My journey has been long. I feel like I've lived 10 different lives in my careers, and I've done so many cool things. And, everything happens for a reason. And although, like I said, it was the hardest thing I've ever been through, I now use that story to help other women and just share, that there's hope out there.
Yeah. So we're talking about breast implants, and so many women have them. So many women get them for self-esteem issues, for, a lot of women just want to feel better about themselves, just want to look better in clothes. Whatever the reason is. I have breast implants. I know many girls coming out of the fitness industry, which you and I, that's kind of how we know each other, is through the fitness industry.
Right.
So many girls within the fitness industry have them. I think now there's becoming more of an awareness around some of the toxicity that's around them. I still have them. I've had them 20 plus years. So, and I've never had any kind of illness from them. And a lot of women don't, but there is a percentage, and I feel like it's a growing percentage of women, but I don't know that. What are your thoughts? Is it a growing number of women that are getting sick from them?
Yeah. So there's a whole community that I found when I started going down the path of figuring out what was wrong with me. And there's story after story. But the thing is, I, like you, started in the fitness industry in my late teens. I think I was 19 when I first got certified. And it was the thing to do. I remember my first job at a gym here in Nashville. As soon as I got hired, I already had the date on the books to get them. And, I didn't like the way I looked in my clothes. I wanted to boost my confidence. It was kind of the thing to do back then, which was, I guess, 15 years ago now, or 16 years ago. And I started working at a gym. My boss, I tell her, I'm going to have this surgery. And I was afraid because it was such a new job, and I knew I was going to need some time off for it. And she was like, oh, I think it's wonderful. We all have ours done here. So you take as much time as you need, and, I'll book you clients for when you get back. I'm like, cool. Everybody was so supportive. And so I went through with it. And honestly, I would tell people for many years, it was the best thing I ever did. I really liked the way they looked. I'm a small person, and I just never developed. So having them changed my confidence. I was able to fit in clothes and bathing suits and those kind of things. Throughout my fitness career, I did bodybuilding and I did martial arts and never experienced any issues. So, maybe 10 years ago, I started hearing women coming forth. A lot of celebrities were starting to get theirs out and speaking up about their health. As a nutritionist and personal trainer, I kind of felt like, maybe it's just a celeb thing that's doing this. Maybe it's just a trend because I don't have any issues, is what I kept thinking. And, looking back now, the crazy thing is the symptoms are really hard to pinpoint because for many people, it could be something hidden in their body. It could be, I've talked to women with like Hashimoto's and Lyme's disease. It could be something totally unrelated to the implants that have similar symptoms. So it's really hard to like diagnose breast implant illness. So what I was going to say is looking back a year after I got them, I was diagnosed with PCOS, told that I may never have children. And again, it's hard to say, like, was it the implants or was it really my body, my hormones or the way that I was eating and those kind of things back then. But I definitely, now that I've been through what I've been through, know for sure that was my issue. And I'll tell a little bit about that story leading me up to that point. Because like I said, I was very happy with mine. I was very successful in my fitness career and bodybuilding and all the things I wanted to do. And then I got married in 2016. I got pregnant the very next month. So at 37, I was like, oh my gosh, I can have kids after being told I couldn't. And I was at the healthiest state of my life. My body fat was good. I was obviously happy because I had just gotten married. And so things were great. I had my son 7 years ago. And after him, I was able to get back into that bodybuilding shape and like prove I could do it after having a kid. And during that, I was still trying for another baby because I was getting older. So we were trying for baby girl, which I got pregnant with right at the age of 40. So after her, I had 2 C-sections. She was also a C-section planned birth. And after her, I was extremely swollen everywhere. Like coming home from the hospital after giving birth with her, couldn't even fit into the maternity clothes that I wore checking into the hospital. So that was very different. A lot of inflammation right away. And it was COVID. So the world was crazy. Everything was, high stress. So there's the trauma of me giving birth, having to leave my toddler for the first time, and then, having all of this inflammation and just, I kept thinking, well, I'm basically 40 now, so I need to just give my body grace. And the inflammation will come off. I'll get it back together. It's all going to be fine. So after her, I continued to be sick. I had COVID 2 or 3 times. I had some random illnesses where I was in bed for an entire month sick. No one could diagnose what it was. And that inflammation that I had going into the birth didn't leave. So I had such a swollen stomach that looked like it was pregnant. And again, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna hire my coach that will, help me get my body back, help me feel better. So I hired coaches. I was going back to doctors, trying to make sure, because I kept thinking there was something that happened during the birth because I've just not been myself. And I went back to my OBGYN and I'm like, look at my stomach. And at this point, my daughter was like 8 months old. So she wasn't a newborn anymore. And the doctor was baffled. And she was like, wow, you do look so swollen. She goes, but I think you're really dealing with depression. I was like, yes, I'm depressed because I didn't expect to bounce back. I would have been fine if I just looked like it was leftover weight from the baby. But it was every time I went out of my house, someone asked me when I was due. And at this time, I'm working an online fitness job for the largest fitness company in the world. I'm one of their top trainers. I'm doing thousands of nutrition plans, getting thousands of people losing weight and shredded and feeling great. And I'm sitting in bed, like feeling like I'm dying, not just the inflammation, but my joints hurt. I looked like I'd aged 10 years. And again, I'm like, okay, I had a baby. Just give your body grace. You're going to get back. I kept trying to internally pump myself up because the person that I was pre all of this was always in the gym, always upbeat and happy and just a go-getter. And, for 2 years after giving birth, like I said, I just felt like I was dying. I literally was just stuck with all these symptoms. There were at least 30 that I can track from that time, from 2020. And again, I went to doctor after doctor. I tried everything from functional doctors, regular doctors, um, hiring coaches, lymphatic therapy, chiropractors. And so many people would say, work with me for 90 days and I can help you. And then 90 days would come and they're baffled. Like no one could figure out what was happening to me. My blood work looked great. On paper, I looked very healthy, but it was such a trying time because having two little kids, my husband was having to take on all the responsibility of caring for them because I was not able to do much at all. If I took them to the park, that was all I could muster up the energy to do for the day. So it was a lot of me being in bed, a lot of us trying to figure out just how to get me feeling better.
You said like you thought that something happened during the birth of your daughter. Do you believe that that's when did the implant break? The implant was
Yeah.
broken? Do
So
you
the
believe that's
story,
when it broke, when you had her?
I think something happened around that time. And honestly, I have no scientific backing for this, but I had COVID 3 times, and COVID is a beast. Like, I think people are still trying to figure out how it affects the body. I personally feel that it was during one of the coughing spells, because there were a couple times I actually went to the hospital with COVID. And I feel like maybe COVID attacks the weaknesses in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I already had a little tear and then it made it a million times worse. During that time that I was extremely sick, I was, like I said, seeking doctors, seeking people, anyone that can help me. And 2 years ago, I went home for Christmas. It was the first time my dad had met my daughter, and he immediately pats my stomach and he's like, "Oh, we're having another." And I'm like, "No, we're not." And so, it was just another question on, when I'm due. And so it was during that trip that I was going to the gym with my husband because I was trying to push through, and I was drinking a lot of bottled water. And I'm like, gosh, every time I drink bottled water, my stomach gets worse. Like, most people wake up feeling lighter in the mornings, and I would wake up heavier. So it was during that trip, I was at the gym, and I love to listen to podcasts and learn. And I discovered a doctor by the name of Stephen Cabral. And I realized he has a very large podcast on all kinds of health issues. So I start just binging his podcast. And I'm like, I don't know who this man is, but I need to get to him because he sounds knowledgeable. I think he can help me. And so I start doing my research on Dr. Cabral, and I discovered that he has practitioners underneath him. So he's obviously famous. You can't really get to him, but you can get to one of his practitioners. The one that I actually hired is somebody that studied with him and has worked with him for more than 20 years. So incredibly knowledgeable. I book a call with her to tell her my 100 of symptoms happening and what's been going on the past 2 years. And for the first time in the process, someone was like, something's wrong. There is something in you. Let's do some lab testing. So we did a gut bacteria test, and then we did a heavy metal lab. And funny enough, the heavy metal lab was a free one they sent to me because I'd purchased the other one. So I was like, why not? I'm just going to test my metals. So the tests come back, and my gut bacteria lab was perfect. And I'm thinking, nothing's wrong with my gut. Like, look at my gut. Something's terribly wrong. And then my metal lab was through the roof. The numbers were horrible. And when I met back with that practitioner, she was like, this is not aluminum in your deodorant. This is not just like metals in your cookware. This is something you're ingesting. So then it was a little bit of a game of what the heck am I ingesting that's causing these metals to do this to me? And so I was trying to figure it out. I bought a $5,000 water machine. I did switch out all my cookware. I'm trying to live as non-toxic as possible. And I go to bed one night. In my sleep, I literally heard God say, "It's your implants, get them out." I mean, I've never had an experience. God's never come to me in my dreams before. And I heard it so clear that when I woke up the next day, I woke my husband up and I said, babe, I figured it out. It's my implants. And of course, he's just waking up. So he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, they need to come out. They're making me sick.
Had you
And
heard at that point, had you ever heard of breast implant illness or?
I had heard celebrities getting theirs out, and I honestly just brushed it off like, it's just a trend. I don't know if I'm not saying that I don't believe their symptoms, but I had thought I didn't have issues the whole time. I was happy all those years. I had mine for 15 years. And I'll tell you, at my 10-year mark, I go back to my original surgeon to see if I needed to, like, change them out, because they usually say the 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that surgeon said, oh no, yours will never rupture and yours will last at least 20 more years, because I got the new silicone when they first came back out on the market. And he was like, nope, yours look great. You're fine. You're good to go. So, I did check at the 10-year mark. And then now I'm at year 15, just completely losing my life, not even looking like the same person, not just in the belly or the inflammation, but in my face, my eyes. I had dark circles. I had dark spots showing up all over my face. I had rashes all down my body. And I was on steroids and creams because I also, it's so embarrassing, but I had a funky smell coming out of my armpits, and I could shower and it'd be horrible right out of the shower. Like nothing got rid of this. And so they were upping the cream I was on to try to get rid of this funk. And I mean, I couldn't walk into a room because it was so embarrassing. So I did become very depressed, where I did not leave my house because I didn't want someone asking me if I was pregnant or smelling me because it was that embarrassing. But that, hearing God tell me that, it wasn't even on my radar that could be it. As much as now looking back, I'm like, the rashes were here. They were close to the implants, and it still didn't register with me until I heard that. And it was like plain as day the next morning. And it took my husband a second, because he had dealt with me for 2 years of all of this. Like, I would go hire someone or go try all these supplements or this new functional doctor. And then, I would feel good for like a week or two. And so we're like, okay, I'm getting my life back. And then I would just be like 10 times worse and back in bed for another month. So he's thinking like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. He was like, are you going to get them like replaced? And I said, no, I heard out for good. And he was like, now think about it. Cause you talked about wanting to get back into bodybuilding, is that going to affect things? And I'm like, at this point, I can't even picture feeling good through a workout, let alone getting my body back in that kind of shape. So, he was supportive, because he was like, look, I want to get you feeling good. That's the most important thing. So that week I scheduled an ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech, I did one of those mobile ultrasounds that come to town, the her scan, because I thought I was going to get results right then. I didn't realize you still have to wait on the doctor. So I went to a her scan, and this person doing the ultrasound, during the ultrasound, she goes, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before. And I'm like, is it cancer? Am I dying? Like, I literally thought I had cancer. And she goes, no. She goes, I've seen cancer. It's not cancer. I'm not seeing any cancer. She goes, I honestly don't know what I'm looking at. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is in me? It really freaked me out. So after I meet with her, I have no answers still, because I have to wait on those results. So in the meantime, I went ahead and found a surgeon. I started doing all my research, because you have to go to a surgeon that knows how to do explants. It's super in depth, especially if you've had them a long time, because the capsule is like, could attach to your lungs and to your organs. So getting them removed can take hours for that kind of in-depth surgery. So I actually found a surgeon in Murfreesboro who primarily does explants now, and people were flocking to him. So I'm like, I live in Murfreesboro. I'm like, that's great. He's right down the road. And I met with him that week, and he said, I want to schedule you an ultrasound through my people. So I had that the following week, and God answers that it wasn't cancer, but what happened is the silicone ruptured out of the implant and out of the capsule. So the capsule had a crack in it. So the silicone, what that woman was seeing was free flowing silicone. And only one was ruptured, thank goodness. But I was having symptoms like under both armpits, and my chest had been really sore since giving birth. And I always thought it was like a hormonal thing. So I would wear like 2 sports bras, and I would sleep in the sports bras because they were so sore. But again, I had nursed my baby. I was just thinking my hormones are all jacked up. So it's just kind of like that kind of soreness, like hormonal soreness. So once I discovered that I had the rupture, that was confirmation that they have to come out. And, one of my questions to the surgeon, because I wasn't sure what I was going to look like, and I start down the rabbit hole. There's some groups that you can get in, and they'll actually post their pictures. And I'm so glad that I looked at them, because after the surgery, it takes a while for you to look remotely normal. So I'm glad that I saw what was going to happen, and I knew going into it. But, I did ask my surgeon, did most people just get them replaced? And he said, when you're this sick, they don't. Chances are, once your body's developed those reactions that you're having and those 30 plus symptoms, chances are those symptoms are going to come back. So he was like, if you're having this, I don't recommend you getting them back in. So my next question to him was, can I get a fat transfer? Because I already know I'm going to be pretty small, although I was hoping that I would be larger since having kids and weighing 20 pounds heavier. And he was like, nope, I don't think a fat transfer is going to work for you. And I said, what about a lift? And he was like, you're not going to have anything to lift. So he was so open about preparing me for what I was looking at. But the most important thing for me was just to feel better. I was at the point where my looks no longer mattered. Like, I had to get my life back. I was not the mom I wanted to be. The first 2 years of my daughter's life is a complete blur. I look back at pictures and I have no recollection of like where I even was those 2 years.
So were you concerned at this point that nursing your daughter, that she had gotten some of that and ingested some of the silicone into her body?
Ironically enough, I ran out of milk about 3 months in with her, and I was already in a depression, postpartum, all these crazy things happening to my body. I was so depressed when that happened because I knew she was my last child. And I try to live so holistically, and I wanted everything to be as natural as possible, but I wanted to nurse her for a year. And that was my goal with her. And then I literally just one morning had no milk. Like, there was no pumping, no getting it back. I did some supplements and that kind of thing. So, and in hindsight, I think it was God's protection. Like, there's a reason that happened. And it could also be the amount of stress I was under during that time, with it being COVID and working around the clock with the job I had and then 2 kids. So
Yeah.
I was stressed, to say the least.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this for a moment, because so many people, and I think any man that would listen to this wouldn't understand, but I think a lot of women do, especially women inside of the fitness industry, or the beauty industry, really, because I think women in fitness and beauty are very concerned with how we look, our appearance. And I know, like, you've voiced how scared you were, like, what's this going to do to me, my body, like, what's my body going to look like? But you had no option. So you kind of had to make this decision rather quick. And I'm sure even your husband, did he know you before you had the implants, or?
No. Yeah, it was all new for us.
Yeah. So it's a very scary thing to go through, that I think a lot of people, when we're not the ones walking through it, it's very easy to say, just do it. It's not a big deal. It's just
Right.
boobs and people don't even notice. But for women that are going through it, it's extremely huge. And I can only speak to this because I personally considered having mine taken out. So I've had mine redone several times because I've had them for so long. And the last time, which was about 5 years ago, when I went back in to have them replaced, because, there's a life cycle to the implants, which you voiced.
Right.
But mine are saline. And my doctor then tried to talk me into silicone. He said, yours are on top of the muscle. Your skin is very thin. As you get older, your skin's going to get even thinner. We have to put them, we need to put silicone. It's lighter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to do. But I had been in some of these groups. Some of the groups you're talking about that shows the pictures, that shows like the explants, that shows the difference in the sicknesses. And saline is what I had always had. So I just went back with saline. He was not happy about it. Honestly, like, I'm not happy one way or the other, to be honest with you. At this point in my life, I kind of wanted them out, but I was scared the same way that you felt. Now, I wasn't experiencing sickness. I just was tired of having something foreign in my body. And to be honest with you, mine were, when I was younger, I wanted the bigger, the better.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've gotten older, bigger is not always better. And I didn't want, there's certain things I can't wear because it looks provocative, and it's not provocative, but on a frame that has large implants, it looks that way. And so I wanted to get mine out for that reason. But it was very scary, and I chose not to. I chose to go down in the CCs that I had. But looking back in hindsight, I wish that I would have been in a better place mentally so that I could have had mine taken out, because just for health reasons, the thing is, you don't know how long, you're telling me that you had yours for 10, 15 years. It's a very scary thing, but I would like for you to maybe talk a little bit about emotionally that process of taking them out, and then what you went through after seeing your frame, seeing your body for the first time, and then healing. What was that like?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a long road. So I just celebrated my 2-year explant anniversary, and going into the surgery, I wasn't even strong enough my body could make it through, because I on a daily felt like I was dying. So that morning of the surgery, I actually wrote a goodbye letter, which sounds really dramatic, but that's how I felt that morning. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to wake up. Like, I feel so tired all the time. And so I write this letter, and then I start freaking out, because I'm like, does my husband know this about our bank account and my passwords and all this stuff? So I'm like writing letters that morning just in case. And I get there to get prepped for the surgery, and I'm asking the nurse, I'm like, am I going to wake up? Am I going to be okay? And they were like, you're healthy. You're going to be fine. And I'm like, look at my body, like rashes from literally here all the way down to my ankles on both sides. I'm like, have you seen my rashes that I can't get rid of? And of course, the nurse is like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now, but we're here to take your implants out. So going in, I was terrified, and I was terrified about what I was going to look like, even though, I stated that wasn't the most important thing, was to feel better. I just didn't know what I was really looking at. So I go in, have the surgery. Once I got home and woke up, it literally felt like the world went from gray to bright instantly. I was sitting up. I was in such a good mood. And of course, I'm on medications, and I'm thinking, wow, these meds are great. I haven't felt like this in years. And my husband comes into the room, and he's looking at my face, and he was like, Jenny, you are glowing. And he was saying my dark circles were gone instantly. So I actually have a picture of me. I have to send this to you, but it's it's a day before the surgery and then 3 days after the surgery. And I look like a completely different person. So immediately I'm getting out a journal, and I'm like journaling, and I'm happy. And I'm like, I haven't journaled in 2 years. Like, I've been a really depressed person. And so I'm writing like my gratitude. I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I can't get up yet because I had drains and all kinds of things. But I'm like, wow, like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. And then that continued. That energy kept picking up. It was 3 weeks after the surgery that I was able to work out again, and a pretty hardcore workout, even though the doctor was like, slow down, just walk. I felt so good. And I was like, I am back. And so for a long time, though, I wouldn't look at myself. I wouldn't look at like what it was looking like. I was okay with the sports bras I bought, but I wouldn't really face, because I didn't want anything to bring down that positivity and that energy. So I, through the process, just kept focusing on speaking to myself really kindly, and just being like, wow, look in the mirror at what your body's done. The inflammation in my stomach was disappearing. And and I was left with weight because I had been so inactive, but that wasn't bothering me. Like, I could see the differences and the changes happening. The rashes went away within a week. I went into the surgeon the week before surgery. They have a checklist for BII symptoms, and that's how I know how many I was checking. Almost everything on that sheet I checked yes. And then when I went back for my post-op, they hand me the sheet again, and maybe 2 symptoms were left over. But the rashes, the smell, the inflammation, the way I even looked, all of that was immediately better for me. Now, I've talked with women that have had explants that go in because they feel horrible and nothing changes after. And they're like, oh, did I make the right decision? I got these out and I still feel sick. The thing that I tell them is I was working with a practitioner to make sure that I built my body up before the surgery. So I was taking supplements that were acceptable pre-surgery, just to boost my immune system and to boost my body. And then post-surgery, 4 weeks after, I did a 21-day liver detox, and then followed that with a 6-week heavy metal detox. So I was taking all the precautions and everything to make sure I was eating the right foods, and just doing all the right things. And that's what I tell women, that it's not all the implants, it's also your lifestyle and what you're putting into your body too.
Even doing the detoxes and everything, that is a remarkable transformation so quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
At that point, did you realize that you were confirmed in knowing that it is the implants at that point?
Yeah. I knew immediately, just from my 3-day pictures, the befores and afters. It was insane. And more importantly, I was not laying around, even with the drain still in, that you have after surgery. I'm up and about doing things. Like, I was not expecting to feel that good, because I had just gotten used to feeling so bad that I don't even think I realized, because I tried to fake it for people. I tried to fake it for my kids, but I don't even think I realized how bad off I actually was until I felt literally like myself again.
So when they explanted, like, how did they get all of, so I've often wondered this about the silicone, like, how do they get all of that out? If it's spread into your
Yeah.
body, how do they get it
Yeah.
out? Did they get it out? Is that what you did with the detox, or did they actually go in and take that out?
So my surgeon says that he got it all. He sent me pictures. He sent me a video, actually, just a couple days after the surgery, so I could see what the rupture looked like. And he was showing me, look, I cleaned all this out. So they scrape it if it's attached to, your lungs or whatever. So my surgery, I think, was about 5 hours. And the other one was easy. It was all intact, and, no rupture with that one. So he says that he got all of the silicone out, which is very sticky substance, and then he flushes it. I have had my lymph nodes checked in my armpits, and there's no sign of silicone. So I'm assuming that it's all out. I feel like it is, and I feel really good, just kind of where I am. So I'm just choosing to believe that it's all out. I did see, like I said, the video, and then I got my one implant they give you back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, have you talked to women that have gone in and got explanted and then they've not got all of it? They've had to go back in?
So some people don't remove the capsule that's formed around the implant. The surgeon will go in and just take the implant out. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that can show up. So I actually had mine sent off for testing, and there was a cancer marker in mine. And so I had to go about a month after my surgery. I had to go to a cancer doctor and have it looked at. And then they discovered none at that point. But there was like a marker that showed up. And if there's another marker with it, then that's cancer. So that's what they were concerned with. I've heard of women having issues when they don't get the whole capsule removed
Hmm.
and
So,
it turning and that kind of thing.
hmm so I know one of the issues that I've had with my implants over the years is where the capsule gets hard or their scar
Hmm.
tissue builds up around the capsule. Is there a chance of that still happening with them leaving the capsule in there? Or do you know?
I'm not sure on that. Most of the women that I'm seeing that still have a lot of issues after still have that capsule. And in the groups, there's even a surgeon in there that will be like, you need to go back and have that removed as well.
Mm,
Because it can definitely, I mean, anytime you're having surgery, you can build up that scar tissue.
yeah. You're still active in the groups?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're helping other women through this, which is
Yeah. I'm sharing my story. So I actually, after I woke up, got my life back, I was like, you know what? I want to go back and get my certification to be an integrated practitioner, because I feel like that was the starting point of my healing and my recovery, is finding someone, even though the practitioner I worked with didn't say, "Oh, do you have breast implants?" It was never a question. But like I said, she was the first person that heard me, while I sat there and cried on the video to her, and was just acknowledging that I'm not making this up. And so I decided to go back and become an integrative practitioner, along with the personal training and nutrition side of what I do for a living. And so I have created an explant program for women to help build their bodies pre-surgery and then post, through the detoxes and lab testing and that kind of thing. And there for a while, everyone tells you when you're in the fitness industry and the online space, like, you need a niche, you need a niche. And I had so many women reach out to me, but I didn't feel like that's all of my story. I have, 25 years of other things that I did with my life in the fitness industry. I think it's part of my story. What I've realized is there's so many women that just don't feel good. So I do share my story, but not to scare women that have implants, or not to go preach, get them out, get them removed, because everybody's story is different. But I have so many people that come to me that just don't feel good and they can't figure out what's happening. Their blood work looks good. Doctors are telling them fine. And because I went through that, and I literally felt like people thought I was making it up, which was even more frustrating, because I'm like, I know that something's wrong. And so I'm helping people that, just giving them a voice to keep searching. And, you can get a lot of healing when somebody's just listening to you, lifestyle changes, nutrition. So we can start with all of that. Then we can do the lab testing and see what's actually happening in their bodies. So while I have the explant program, I have a lot of other programs to help women balance their hormones and cortisol levels, and just get to their optimal health with no matter what they're dealing with.
mhm. Well, and I always tell people too, sometimes it's just having an awareness with any type of trauma. If I'm struggling through any type of trauma, if I don't know that it's a result of that trauma, if I'm just struggling reacting to certain things or getting in moods or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't have an awareness. So sometimes just raising an awareness around these things is so important. So I feel like with you already having a space to speak into health and wellness in these women's lives, and then just saying like, this is my story, um, because sometimes that can spark something in someone's mind that says, well, I've been having these weird symptoms, maybe that is what it is, possibly this is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are. I have a lot of interaction inside of the fitness industry, and I'm sure that you do too. And you know that there's an issue with coaches that are training girls that are competing, telling them that
Mm-hmm.
they need to get implants. Now, granted, it does change the aesthetics of the body. They
Right.
do balance things out. But what are your thoughts about a coach telling a competitor or a girl that's wanting to get into competing or wanting to compete on a national or pro level, that you're not ever going to get there unless you get implants?
Mm-hmm. I know when I was competing, I met a lot of women that didn't have them. I met a lot of women that had children. And as far as the coach telling them that, I think there is more awareness. More people are moving towards discovering, like, or being more mindful of what is going in their body. A lot of women are just making the decision not to get them because they don't want a foreign object in their body. And their hearing, the more that people like me and the celebrities that speak out, there is an awareness and there is questions that need to be asked. If you go to the surgeons are not going to tell you the black box label. They're not going to tell you the warnings and the studies on cancer linked to the implants. So with coaches, I would just say, find the right coach. And if that's a decision that the woman wants to make, because, in those breast implant illness groups, I see almost daily someone saying, I'm thinking about getting my implants. And then there's like 100 comments of, you're in the wrong group. Like, all these women have been sick from them. But I think, I would love to see that industry change, because for me, like, the training that I did really had nothing to do with my boobs, and my boobs were not that big before. They were only like a large B. So, I don't think, as far as like bodybuilding, that's what should be looked upon, even though I know, like you said, it gives you the hourglass or whatever the figure. But I think the sport needs to be looked at more as a sport and not just based on the chest.
Absolutely.
So I would say if there's coaches that are telling women they need to go do that, then you might want to check, how you're actually feeling about it, and then check your coach.
Yeah.
And I would love to. Yeah, I do see the industry changing and being more open to more of the natural look.
Mm-hmm. I think fitness is just a really hard one, because, the more that you cut your body down into that lean state, the more you do lose fat. And I believe this. I mean, every time that I've ever dieted down for a show, or even just dieted down for my own personal goal or whatever, the weight goes back on differently. Like, I feel like it goes back on in a better way in most cases. But I think with the breast tissue, that is fat tissue. And so sometimes I think when you've done fitness for years and years and years, and you've dieted down and you've got, gained a little bit of weight back and dieted back down, it does sometimes get rid of some of that tissue. So I can see why women in the fitness industry, it's even more challenging, I think, inside of that industry than even in most industries. But this is something that was brought to my attention. I got a friend that was talking about it, about how she was interviewing a coach, and the coach told her this. And then, it's not the first time I've heard that. And it's just disheartening, because I get it. If you're a coach, you want to train this person to look their very best on stage, but pressuring someone to do something that should be their own personal choice is never a good thing.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So what would you tell someone today? Like, what would your advice be if someone came to you and said, man, I just feel really self-conscious, I want to go get breast implants? So what would your advice be?
Yeah, I would ask them, the real why behind wanting to get them, because for me, I wanted to get them at 16, 17 years old. My parents were actually behind it. And then I backed out because I was scared. So I didn't get mine until I was a little bit older than that. But, I would ask those reasons, because if you're self-conscious, if it's one of those things where you just think it's automatically going to build your confidence, it might not. Like, I think doing all the work on yourself internally before that, I was in a really good place when I did get mine. I had found that I did love myself, even flat chested. And I still wanted them. And I knew then it wasn't like, when I'm 16, I wanted them because I just didn't develop and I was jealous of all the other girls. So I think if you've done all the work internally and you love yourself no matter what, like, you can look in the mirror and love the way you look, I would definitely suggest doing all the research on what could possibly happen, so that everything going into it. But if you don't have that self-love and that confidence chances are you're going to get boobs, and you're still going to deal with some other issue of your confidence level.
Yeah, that's perfect advice. honestly, I couldn't agree. I agree with you 100% because, sometimes doing certain things, making body adjustments doesn't necessarily fix what's internal. And there's a
Yeah,
book I read by a plastic surgeon, and he talks about this, how he thought by fixing people's things that they were self conscious about would fix them. But he was
right.
surprised that so many times it didn't. So that's
Yeah.
a very, very good point.
I was going to say, even with weight loss, I've seen it. I've worked with women that are like, if I can just lose 20 pounds, I'll feel good. I'll gain confidence. But then a lot of times I see that they are not doing the internal work. So they get to that 20 pounds and they're still not happy with something. And so it can go along with anything in life, that you've got to know, I believe, who you are through Christ. You have to look at yourself and speak kindly to yourself. That's one thing that I made sure of after the surgery, that I didn't want to look in the mirror and say negative things, especially with my daughter standing there, because my kids did see it when I was heavy and I was dealing with the stomach and I was frustrated. They heard those things. They heard me be so frustrated on a daily looking at myself. So after my surgery, I made up my mind, no matter what I look like, I'm not going to speak negative. And honestly, it doesn't, things have formed back to more normal looking. And I'm really happy with the turnout. And I don't dwell on the, oh man, if I could just be a little bit bigger, or, I've learned to wear clothes differently. What I used to look really good in doesn't work for me anymore. So that was a learning curve through the process. But through the process, I keep thinking, I have a little girl that's watching me. And how do I want her to think about herself? Like, what would I tell her going through this process? And that's what I kept in mind through the entire journey of it.
Hmm. Yeah, and those are things that I've honestly thought about too. I think when you become a mom, it changes things a little bit, especially
Yeah.
if you're a mom of a daughter, and
Yeah.
looking at them, thinking, "How's this going to impact them?" And I've often wondered on the flip side of that because, like I said, I still have my implants. Like, is this detrimental to her to see this? But I try to be just forthright with my kids and talk to them about things and share with share with them the real side of things.
Yeah.
And one day I do hope to have mine completely taken out. Um, the whole for me, like being able to run. That's something you don't
Yeah.
think about when if I run, I have to wear two sports bras. It sucks. Um,
Yeah.
so there's little things like that, or being able to go without a bra. I know some people with implants can go without a bra. No, I can't.
Yeah.
So I'm like tied to this thing, forever. Um, certain bathing suits. There's all kinds of things, and
Right.
it does change your body, the way your body looks. But at the end of the day, like you said, just loving yourself no matter what, wherever you're at. And you know, if I would say if someone were to ask me about getting breast implants, my advice would be you do all your research. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell
Do
you
the,
not to, but I'm
right.
going to tell you go do as much research, learn as much as you can. And there's
Yeah.
so many decisions within getting those implants too. It's not just
Right.
like I've decided to go get breast implants. It's like, do you want saline? Do you want silicone? Do you want under the
The
muscle? Do
texture.
you want over the muscle? Yeah,
Yeah.
there's all these things. So you still need to educate yourself regardless.
Yeah. And I would say, whether you are thinking about getting them in or out, if you are a Christian, I would definitely say pray about it, because you'll get answers through the word. You'll get answers. And, I think I neglected God through my journey because I was angry. I was angry that I wasn't the mom I wanted to be and I didn't feel or look the way I wanted to be. And, I'm so glad that I heard that in my spirit. And I've learned to lean on Him through this entire journey of healing. And so I would say, if you have that little inkling of, I do want to get them out one day, then, just lean into praying about the timing of it.
Yeah, that's perfectly good advice too. And for sure, I believe pray about everything.
Yeah.
But internally, God does answer those things, and He does give you internal wisdom and insight
Yeah.
into those things as well. So um, I agree with you 100%. Thank God you found out the culprit of this, that He showed you, and now you're healthy and you're well. And who knows what would have happened? That's been 2 years ago.
Yep.
Who knows
2
what would,
years ago, November 8th.
yeah. Do you ever think about that? What happens if I had not found this out and I'd kept these in?
Man, I don't know, honestly, where I would be. Um, yeah, I was struggling.
I'm so grateful that you found out and that you're here today and you're sharing your story. And I know
Yeah.
that your story is so impactful. I know that you shared some things on social media recently, um, about your story and some of the pictures, which I can put into
Mhm.
here if for those of you that are listening to listening to it on video. I can put some of the photos that Jenny sends me, but man, those pictures were, it's crazy when you see
Yeah.
it, looking at the difference. And
Yeah. And there were so many things that I didn't document because I was so unhappy that the things that I pulled were just some random phone conversation I had with my cousin one day was my before face, because I would not get on camera. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't leave my house. I didn't want anybody to see me. And so I wish now I would have documented everything, but I'm glad I took the things that I did. And, once I felt better, I went back through my camera roll and I'm like, wow, I was taking pictures of my rashes because I was sending it to doctor friends and anybody that could help. Like, what is this? What's happening?
yeah,
So, yeah, I'm glad. And, my mission really is to help people through whatever health issues they're going on. I definitely don't have all the answers, but I will listen. And I have a lot of mentors, a lot of, people that I can reach out to if I can't get to the root of things.
yeah. I know you talked a little bit about your personal training and your business and what you do there and working with the hormones and things, but tell us kind of like who you're looking for as far as who you want to help the most. Is it mainly women?
I have women and men. A lot of times the women drag their husbands to me that aren't feeling good, not eating right, not doing the work on themselves. I work with a lot of couples and I actually have one male client that worked with me for 30 days. He lost about 30 pounds and he got off all medication. So he had been diagnosed for the year prior to working with me with diabetes and high blood pressure. And he was like, I just don't want to be on all these meds. And I was like, let's just start working on getting you healthy. And I didn't even realize how quick he was going to get healthy. And, he came to me and he was like, I'm going to get off my medications. I'm like, no, you need to go talk to your doctor. There's a way that you get off medications. I'm never telling people to stop their medications. But he was able, his doctors were able to lower the dosages and then eventually get him completely off of the medications. But primarily I'm working with women 35 and up. That perimenopause, menopause stage is a really tricky stage. There's a lot of symptoms that come along with that. So I'm helping women to balance cortisol, hormones, learn how to eat and work out for their body and their
Yeah,
goals.
yeah.
Yeah, so I have an app that was created. It's Go Forth Wellness. I have one-on-one coaching. So if you have something going on and you need that personalized approach, I have, customized everything in the one-on-one training. That's usually a conversation that we got to have so I can take a deep dive into what's happening with you. And then I have group coaching and I have nutrition tracking through my app as well as custom meal plans and monthly workouts.
Awesome. So you got everything there for somebody who was struggling. And I just want to say to anybody that's listening that if you are struggling through any of these things, like there is hope. You need to figure out what is going on. And health is it's a wild thing because it's a trial and error. You have to figure out like
Mm-hmm.
I recently went through some stuff, blood tests and things with my own hormones and because I knew something was off, but I think that was uh, like premenopausal stuff. But it's, you deserve to feel good. So if you're out there and you're listening and you have some questions, I mean, I would highly recommend reaching out to Jenny. She could possibly help you get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, definitely. And be an advocate for your own health. When you know you don't feel good, it's not normal. All those perimenopause, menopause symptoms, like it doesn't mean your health is going downhill and your life is over with all these symptoms and that you should be struggling with those symptoms. Like there is a way to feel good through that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely reach out, but never stop pushing to feel your very best.
I want to just say that sometimes there's a lie that as you get older, you're just going to go downhill. You're just going to
Yep.
feel bad. I reject that. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't have to feel bad because I'm getting older. I know people that are in their, I mean, I have known people in their 90s who are still moving around and stuff. That's going to be me if I live that long, you know?
Yes.
I
Yes.
refuse to go downhill just because of age. So,
Yeah. My secret goal is to actually get back into bodybuilding, maybe before, but definitely when I'm like in my 70s, when there's not going to be a lot of competition going on, and maybe go pro at that point.
I mean, what a remarkable goal. And there's ladies online. I've seen them. I've followed them
Yeah.
that are doing this at like 60 and 70 years old.
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
That
Their
is my
bodies, yeah, their bodies look better than some 30-year-olds. I'm like, so it's all possible. But
it is definitely that's going to be me and you. We're going to hit the stage when we're elderly.
I have a friend in the gym, and me and her talk about how when we get old and go in the nursing home, like we're going to be trying to get into the gym at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, the main thing is never stop. Like never stop training and building your bones and your muscles. And my whole goal now is, like I said, just to feel good. And that's going to be working out the rest of my life. Like it's just part of what I do on the daily.
But you know what the crazy thing is, that I'm in my 40s. The crazy thing is that I feel like at this age, like we already see people looking younger and taking care of themselves. And we're in a prime age to really set the example that you can age gracefully. You can age into something that where you still feel good and you still feel, you still have energy and stamina, and you can still go work out and you can still do all of these things. And I hope we can redefine that. Like our generation can redefine that going into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of biohacking you can do to reverse the aging. So
that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother episode. We might have to get you back on here to talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much. You're beautiful. You are glowing right now. And I'm just so happy that you got to the bottom of this and that you're sharing. It takes a brave person to be able to share these things. It's not always a comfortable conversation, but you're doing it. And I praise you for it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad that we're becoming friends.
Yeah.
And that we're together. And I'm so excited for just what the future is going to hold too.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.